Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Guardians of the CLE podcast. And here this week, we finally have actual baseball games to talk about. Already lots to get to here in the first week of games down in Goodyear. And lucky for all of you, we do not have a time limit like the new pitch clock that we are starting to see across Major League Baseball. First off, I just want to thank everybody so much for continuing to listen and continuing to help us grow. We eclipsed over 500 downloads for the month of February, which is one of the slowest months of the baseball calendar year. So I just want to big shout out to all our guests, all our listeners. We're just getting started here. We are not done yet. It's going to be a fun summer covering the Guardians, and that will never not be super cool to me. So thank you again, everybody. But go ahead and settle on in here tonight. Like I said, we have a lot to get to. I'm your host, Melanie Kirby, who I happen to still be waiting for Josh Bell's home run ball to land. And with me here, as always, my double play partner, James Ellifritz, who luckily got in the box right before the pitch clock expired to avoid the automatic strikeout.
Yes,
James,
barely. If you're on YouTube, you're going to see I have my sunglasses on because spring training is open. The Cactus League is in full effect. I am so excited. We're excited just even from today being topping 70 degrees here in Ohio. So we are just absolutely looking forward to more Guardians baseball.
Yeah, it's spring training weather up here in Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. But I want to jump in where you were with all of our listeners. I hope that, with our Guardians podcast, that we were able to carry you through this off season, which happened to be a little bit shorter because of our playoff run. And, you guys are really important to us. We appreciate all the tweets, all the follows, the downloads, listening. So please keep staying in touch with us. We were happy to bring some off-season guests coming in here. We're going to have some more coming up in the future. So keep staying with us and keep talking about us. Keep retweeting.
Absolutely. This has been super cool. The off season kind of flew by. We've been blessed enough to have the guests that we have. So we're going to roll right into the season with it. And James, as you know, the Cactus League and the Grapefruit League get underway, we're starting to see these new rules in effect. And I'm not going to lie, I was headed to my second job last Saturday and I'm seeing all the tweets of, Manny Machado and the pitch clock between the Padres and the Mariners. And all I see is this humongous giant shot clock looking thing right behind home plate.
Yeah.
And I couldn't watch the pitcher to the batter because I'm just staring at that clock. I'm a person who is easily distracted. So I love the idea of speeding the game up because as a fan, my whole life of baseball, there is a lot of dead time. There is a lot of stepping out of the box, pitchers stepping off the mound. I do see how games get long and they get dragged out. My only hope is they just kind of, in the major league parks, they kind of have that pitch clock off to the side a little bit because I'll be a person who just stares at the pitch clock and I'm going to be missing stuff.
Yeah, I did read that, Mel, that they're supposed to have it out of the frame once the regular season starts at the major league stadiums. It's supposed to be out of frame. I know on the one channel, I can't remember which game I was watching, but it would only pop up with only a few seconds left on the actual TV for one game that I was watching. So it's going to be, it's an adjustment for the players. It's an adjustment for us as fans. But so far, I think it's been nice. But I think you're like me, right? So we're watching a game, but who's not on their phone when they're watching a game, right?
It gives me plenty of time to live tweet.
Yeah.
The way baseball's been.
But there's been times I'm reading something, or if I'm down in the basement, I got both TVs on, where I look over at the inning and I'm like, dang, I looked away for just a little bit and it's already, I missed like a whole inning.
Yeah.
It's great. I'm for it.
It's definitely moving quick. And to nobody's surprise, James Karinchak has already gotten dinged. He had the clock expire on him, his first appearance in spring training. The situation was a little different. He had asked for a new baseball. He thought the clock would restart. They did not restart that pitch clock, so the batter got an automatic ball. I think I saw Stephen Kwan had a strikeout with an automatic. The clock expired, so he struck out on an automatic strike. So it's definitely going to be an adjustment, like you said, for everybody, and especially a guy like James Karinchak, who had the whole routine before. I expect it's going to take him probably most of spring training to kind of get a feel for how long he has, what he can fit into that time period. So it's going to be fun. I think it's going to speed the game up, and I'm looking forward to the increase in stolen bases, which I know we're going to see with, the pickoff attempts being limited to just 2. Also, did you hear Josh Bell on with Andre Knott during the game yesterday? And they were talking about the new rules, and he's like, me and Josh Naylor are both going to hit 300 for the first time in our careers with no shift. And Josh Naylor is going to abuse the right side of that infield. I just have a feeling fully healthy off season, didn't have to focus on rehab. I think our production out of first base is going to skyrocket, especially with Josh Naylor not having to face lefties. I'm so excited about that.
Yeah, overall stats from the first base side. Yeah, I believe that too.
Absolutely.
I mean, Josh Bell's home run, like you said, hasn't even landed yet. I mean,
it
that
still hasn't landed.
The smoke. Did you see the fans stand up and turn around and look? And usually you look, and then it's like, all right, you're back to the game. They're like stuck. Yeah, they were like, is that going to come off the roof? That was classic. Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, that was good for us to see, because obviously we know we had a very high contact rate lineup, not much power, kind of killed us in the ALDS last year. So I know I was excited. Josh Bell right off the bat, like game 2 of spring training, game 3, he's just launching massive moonshots. So that is exciting. On another not so good news, is the injury bug beginning to bite? Are the baseball gods paying the Guardians back for the outstanding injury luck they had last year in their quest to win the American League Central? Really no injuries. No, obviously we know Jose Ramirez and Andres Gimenez played through their injuries, but as far as long-term IL stints, those were definitely limited, over the course of the major league season. We already know Cody Morris, Daniel Espino, Chase DeLauder are out for an extended period. That just is what it is. But a little concerning. I was scared when I saw it. George Valera appeared to foul a ball off that surgically repaired wrist in an at-bat yesterday. He was wincing and grimacing in pain. He immediately left the game. Luckily, they're just calling it soreness. Tito's calling him day-to-day. Obviously, it's spring training. They're not going to rush him back. Yeah. But that was definitely kind of a scary sight, knowing he just had that surgery.
Absolutely. They said x-rays were negative. With Valera, what I've noticed is his follow-through on his swing is huge.
Oh, yeah.
The way he brings that bat back around, that's a lot of torque on that body. But I know it's a hand, but he's going to have to, I don't know if he shortens his swing a little bit just until he gets healthy or what. But there's no rush. Heck, it's March 1st, actually. We finally got out of February.
Starts this month.
Yep.
I love hearing that.
Yes.
It's so cool to know in a few short weeks, the Guardians are going to be in Seattle. We're going to be drinking coffee at 7 p.m., staying up to watch our guys in game 1 of the season. Hopefully they have Sam Hentges for that game. They're shutting him down right now. Left shoulder swelling and inflammation. They said he didn't quite bounce back after he appeared in a game on Sunday. Got the MRI, revealed a little bit of inflammation. Tito says he's week to week. Obviously not going to rush him back either. But with Bryan Shaw's bullpen spot already open, you wonder if that kind of opens the door for another guy to maybe get an opportunity to crack the opening day roster just until Hentges can ramp back up.
Yeah, I mean, Xavier Curry's looked fantastic as well. In his 3 innings he pitched the other day.
My guy.
Yeah, I mean because why? We ran into him at the Guards Fest.
Yeah, and Xavier Curry too. People look like, if you didn't watch the games, you're like, oh, he faced the Tigers. He gave up 5 runs. But if anybody remembers that game, he got blooped to death. Just constant bloops right over Ahmed's head, right over Jose's head, just barely dropping on the grass in left field. He literally got bat-bipped to death in that game. So he's certainly got the stuff. And that's kind of going to lead us into our next point about the rotation. But before we get to that, I want to talk about Tim Herron too. Tim Herron was turning heads after his first appearance. Everyone's like, holy shit, who is this guy? Like, he's got good stuff. Obviously had a really good first appearance, gave up a couple in his second appearance, but overall has still looked really good this spring. He could be an option for that vacated Bryan Shaw spot. You got Nick Mikolajchak, who I was super high on heading into last season. He was Akron's closer when they won their championship. He had lights out stuff. He struggled a little bit last year when he went to Columbus, lost a couple miles an hour on that fastball. Kind of just struggled adjusting to that, but pitched a couple innings so far, hasn't given up a run yet. So I'm definitely keeping my eyes on him to see if over the offseason he's kind of adjusted to pitching with a not, with a couple miles off that fastball, kind of like Shane Bieber had to do this year. Touki Toussaint watch, James. I know you're heavily invested in the Touki watch. I hate to say it, but he got shelled. An inning and a third, gave up 3 runs, 2 walks. He did strike out 2 though, but he could bounce back, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's early. It's one appearance. Yeah, he's just a spring training invite, but we'll see. I mean, we've got a lot of depth in our bullpen. I know we've talked a lot about who's going to maybe potentially struggle and have a decline in their performance this year from an offensive standpoint, but I think in reality, we talked over the offseason that our bullpen, it's tough for bullpens to have just that, solid, super great year back to back. So I'm anticipating, maybe a little bit of struggle there. Whereas I think our offense, Mel, and I think you saw just overall in general for spring training games so far, is that, I think the offense are going to be up. So I think we better right now start getting used to higher ERAs across the board, not just, for the Guardians, but Major League Baseball as an average in general.
Yeah, I definitely think that's an important point you just brought up. I think with the shift gone, with more stolen bases, with that pitch clock, pitchers kind of feeling rushed while they adjust. Offense is definitely going to be up across the board, and I think that's the main goal of most of these rules. And that's what I love about the Guardians is they could start opening day with a group of guys, but if it hits May 1st and some of these guys, whether it be offensively or defensively, they're struggling, they still have all that depth. They still have that top 5 farm system that they really didn't even have to tap into all offseason to fill their holes that they filled with Josh Bell and Mike Zunino. So the fact we're even talking about non-roster guys like Touki Toussaint, Cade Smith's another non-roster invite who's looked good so far. The fact we're even talking about those guys, and we haven't even got to the biggest one. We're going to wait. I know everybody knows I'm talking about Roman Quinn. But the fact that the Guardians can just find these diamonds in the rough and try to squeeze every little bit of value out of them, I think is why they're able to sustain success like they are. It's fascinating to me.
Yeah, it's amazing how the level of competition, because of the talent that we have, how everybody has to come to play at every game, because you have to show what you got. If not, there's somebody just as talented, or if not more, behind you, ready to play, that wants your playing time.
And a lot of the young players we've interviewed have even talked about that, how guys like Brian Rocchio and Angel Martinez, they've taken them under their wings and tried to teach them some things that they recognize there's a lot of middle infielders in the system, but they appreciate that healthy competition. And they look at it as a way of, where can I improve? How can I get better? And I think that's kind of an overall philosophy throughout this entire organization. And there's no area of this organization with more depth than pitching. We know the Guardians are like a pitching factory. And our rotation guys, they're getting their first couple innings of work in. Bieber obviously looked good. 2 scoreless innings, walking a strikeout. T-Mac, never a doubt. 2 innings pitched. Hit, strikeout, and a walk. He had an interview with Andre Knott, and he is ready. He acknowledged he got off to a slow start. He wants to eliminate that slow start, yeah. James. He wants to be pedal to the metal. from April all the way to the end of the season. We're going to get into our prediction show later this month, but don't be surprised if you see T-Mac in that Cy Young conversation for most of the season, because that dude is hungry. I don't know if he wants another Rolex from Marcus Stroman or what, but that's a man on a mission. He looks determined, and I can't wait for it.
I'm more excited to watch him pitch than I am Bieber, to be honest with you.
Yeah, we already know what we're going to get from Biebs, and we might not have him for much longer, but Tristan, I'm telling you, there's a fire in that kid's eyes that I'm seeing. He's gonna wake the country up. We already know what we got here in Cleveland, but I think the rest of baseball is gonna learn Tristan McKenzie's name this year too.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see if he changes location a little bit this year, because remember last year he throws high in the strike zone quite a bit. So I'll be curious to see if he brings that down a little bit or if he just stays where he's content with.
I think he might.
Because I think when he misses high, you know, that's where he starts to get in trouble.
Back end of the rotation, well, we got Cal Quantrill. He's going to be leaving camp to go pitch for Canada in the WBC. Super cool for Cal. Excited to watch him out in the tournament.
Shout out to all of our fans in Canada.
Shout out to the Canadians up north. That's absolutely. Right. Big shout out. Cal went an inning and a third, 2 hits, 2 runs. He allowed a home run, walking a strikeout. Savali actually pitched today. He went a scoreless inning, just walked 1. So hopefully this is the start of the Savali redemption tour, and everybody can stay out of my mentions for me saying he should have pitched game 5.
Yeah.
I stand by that. I'm cool with it. It is what it is. We lost.
Doesn't it feel like when Savali during the regular season, when he pitches, like if he gets through 6 innings, it feels like a complete game for every other starter.
Yeah, and I'm telling you, people are sleeping on him. People are forgetting that before he got hurt in 2021, he was for sure going to be an all-star, and they were already talking about him for Cy Young. So don't think that Civ don't got it in him to be a solid middle-of-the-rotation type guy. I'm telling you, he could be that. We're going to see. Go out and prove me right, Civ.
Yep, and our minor league system's going to push him to stay to get better too.
Yeah, because
to have that season,
it's shit or get off the pot time for Plesac and Savali. If those 2 spots, I think, are far from locked in. Plesac, inning and 2/3, 6 hits, 5 runs, 3 home runs, a walk, no strikeouts. LOL. Before I get into that, it is a good time to remind everybody. It is week 1 of spring training. There's no need to get all worked up if guys start out struggling. They're all getting ramped back up into game condition. We saw a lot of that surrounding Mike Zunino after game 1. He had that pass ball from Will Brennan that allowed a run to score. And I tweeted this too. Most of you know I was not a huge fan of the Mike Zunino signing. I was all over Sean Murphy. But however, it is important to remember he's coming back from a very serious surgery. He had thoracic outlet last year. The fact he was even in the lineup game 1 of spring training is good news. He's going to continue to progress. And the way I see it, his worst case scenario, like the worst possible case scenario, is better offensive output than we're getting from Hedgie. Yeah. So I'm not too worried about the catcher spot.
Yeah, I think with Wazino, for him, the most important job he has is how is he handling our pitching staff?
Yeah.
Everything else is a bonus.
It'll come, yeah.
Yeah. And I think he'll have hot stretches. He'll have cold stretches as well. I mean, that's his
and that's baseball.
Major league career. But hopefully this is one of his seasons where he peaks, where he had his all-star season with Tampa. Maybe we get that out of him this year. But to me, all of that is a bonus.
Even a third of that in our lineup, the production from our lineup is going to shoot up tremendously if the bottom of that order can give us something. But yeah, so back to Plesac's rough start. I'm not overreacting to one start with Zach Plesac. For me, this kind of just hammers my point home that he should have been dealt last trade deadline. And I know they tried. I know they called around. There was some interest from multiple teams. There just never really was a fit, where they thought they were getting enough value back for him. So you hold on to him. I get it. Pitchers are valuable. We saw what they went for in the offseason. But if he can't show signs of improvement and signs of maturity and all those other things we talk about with Zach. There is way too much talent behind him to hang on to a very mid fifth starter. And that's what he is. He's a very league average to a little below average starting pitcher. Is there value in that? Sure. He could be a great depth piece. A lot of teams would take him at the back end of their rotation, teams that don't have as much depth in their system on the pitching front. But as far as the Guardians go, we already mentioned Xavier Curry. Love Xavier. But then a guy like Peyton Battenfield, James, gets slept on a lot. He obviously came over from Tampa Bay in 2021, the Jordan Luplow deal. He's protected from the Rule 5 draft, pitched a couple scoreless innings this spring with 4 strikeouts, no hits, 2 walks. He struggled a bit in AAA last year, kind of got bounced around a little bit. People weren't even sure if he'd be protected. But again, he's another guy. He looks like he showed up this spring ready to compete. He worked out all off season. He's improved his stuff. He's a guy, who could definitely get a look. I think Xavier Curry could be our Pilkington from last year. Just kind of the workhorse, comes up, pitches the double headers, gives you 5 solid innings, turns it over to the pen. But then speaking of Pilkington, we can't really count him out either. He's pitched a couple innings, same thing, 4 strikeouts, 2 walks. He might even have an advantage because he's a lefty. I know you've talked about that before.
Yeah.
Just wanting to get a lefty in the rotation to kind of keep teams on their toes, make them switch their lineup up a little bit. And, then you got Hunter Gaddis, you got Logan T. Allen. We got all these guys where it's like, we don't have time to mess around with you anymore, Zach, or Savali for that matter. I'm not even going to be biased. If either one of those guys can't show up and give us consistent 5 innings quality starts, you got to go somewhere else. Plesac, he could go to the pen. Savali's not much of a pen guy. It messes with his routine. Would you send him back to AAA? I don't know. But at least we have options in case they do struggle coming out of the gate.
I think mentally, if he went to AAA, I mean, obviously we don't know the guy. We haven't got to speak to him, interview him, know how he's wired. All we can go by is what we see.
Yeah.
And from what we saw that first start, and it's like I said, not overreaction, but it just seemed like for him during that start that his last season didn't end. I just think it's a guy that needs a change of scenery. He could go somewhere and then they give him 5 runs a game support. And all of a sudden he looks like a fantastic pickup for another team.
Yeah.
And if that's what happens based on the level of talent and that we have below him that can replace him, if that's what happens, and that's what's best for Zach, and that's what's best for our starting rotation to bring up one of the younger guys, then so be it.
Yeah. And again, like, it's should have get off the pot time for a lot of guys. Logan T. Allen's another one of those guys. Absolutely dominated AA a couple years ago. Even to start last season, he gets bumped up to AAA. Mm-hmm. Was getting knocked around for a few months. His it was affecting him mentally. His stuff didn't look the same. He's another guy. How was he going to show up to camp this year? If he doesn't show up, obviously he's going to start in AAA just to get more time at that level. But if he doesn't find that success, he's going to get leapfrogged. Mm-hmm. And he's going to get leapfrogged by a guy like Tanner Bybee, who we know is part of that big 3 we've heard so much about all offseason. And even with Daniel Espino hurt, there's so much to be optimistic about on that pitching front with Gavin Williams, Tanner Bybee, and Daniel Espino once he does come back. I still don't think we see those guys until 2024, unless the Guardians decide to be super aggressive starting their service clock, which I don't see them doing. Espino's the only one that has to be added after next season. And obviously he's going to be getting another late start to this year. So It gives those guys in between the major league rotation and the big 3, those guys we just talked about, it gives those guys a chance. Who's for real, who's not. It gives the organization a better idea. Who are we going to dangle as trade bait when we go to make that all-in type of move at the deadline? So I know we all wanted more. I was a big one. I wanted to see more from them this offseason. But as we're approaching the season, they're in a really good spot to be able to take the first few months of the year, identify the true holes on this team, and also get that few months to evaluate these guys we're talking about and be 100% sure we want to keep them. These guys were okay dangling for that major league piece, whether it be a bench bat, whether it be a reliever, whether it be a 2-3 type starter. They now can make those decisions with more facts and more evidence. So again, this I never question how this organization runs. It's got a 2016 feel to it where they know they're knocking on the door. They got valuable experience last year. Now it's like Tito said it a million times. It's time for us to win. We can't just be a feel-good story last year. We got to win and show people we're serious. So I'm excited to see how this young team responds. Just one of the many storylines.
Yeah, and we talked about the rule changes and the increase in offense that we expect. So that's going to play hopefully right into our hands as one of the best starting pitching staffs in Major League Baseball and with our bullpen. So yeah. I think pitching is going to be more important this year than it was even last year.
Absolutely.
Especially, like Houston adding to that lineup, that already won a World Series offensively. So, we might have to beat them 6-4.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a lot of games.
They're the model right now.
Yeah. I mean, it might even be higher. So I'll be curious to see how some of our series go with some of the best teams. Because remember last year, we did not have a lot of wins against winning teams. You remember that? We had I think less than Oakland, Pittsburgh. Trying to remember there was like two other ones, but we didn't have a lot of wins against the better teams last. So that's a big expectation for me, is that we see these big series, and when everybody goes down to Progressive Field and buys tickets because the Astros or Yankees are in town, how are we going to do? Are we going to win ththese series? That's going to be
the balanced schedule. We're going to be facing more of those good teams. We're going to be facing the Dodgers now and the Mets and the Phillies, those teams from the National League who are going to be competing for a championship. So there's no hiding in the AL Central anymore. That's for sure. They got to put their big boy pants on and show up and beat those teams that you're going to be competing against in the playoffs. On the hitting side, spring training Gabby showed up again. Gabriel Arias, for those of you who are new here, he notoriously shows up and shows out in spring training. He's already hit 5 for 10 this spring training with a couple steals. Obviously, the organization's very high on Gabriel Arias, as they should be. He was on the postseason roster. They're giving him those outfield reps to give him a better opportunity to get in the lineup. Obviously, it appears Ahmed's going to be playing the season out here. I mean, that Gavin Lux nasty-looking season-ending ACL tear certainly got people talking about the Dodgers calling the Guardians about a shortstop, which they very well could. I don't think it'll be for Ahmed, but we have plenty of options they could call about. But that's a tough break for Gavin Lux, by the way, who was set to replace the recently departed Trey Turner as the Dodgers starting shortstop. I just hate guys getting injured in the spring.
I know. It's like when you watch preseason football, it's the same thing. It's like, some people are really into the wins and losses with spring preseason football and with spring training, but it's just like I could care less. Yeah, look good out there, play, stay healthy, stay safe, right?
Absolutely.
And just make it off the field and just keep playing the next day.
Yeah,
stay out of the damn training room.
Yeah. Tyler Freeman's in that same boat as Gabriel Arias. He's still searching for that swing early here in camp. Andres Jimenez is also going to be leaving camp to play for Venezuela in the WBC. So there's going to be some infield reps becoming available. Angel Martinez, one of those top shortstop prospects we talk about often. He's been playing almost exclusively at third base, which kind of interests me. I'm thinking maybe they give him an aggressive promotion and start him at Columbus, which would be really interesting. He's launched a big boy homer already down in Goodyear. Mm-hmm. Rocchio's my shortstop of the future, playing a lot of second thus far. He's 2 for 8. And Jose Tena's playing a lot of shortstop. So that's kind of where they're placing these guys. Micah Pries, He's another prospect having a great spring. He added another hit today. He's hitting 364. And that's as we move on to the outfield. And holy Roman Quinn, dude. He is absolutely scorching the baseball. He's hitting 429 with 3 long bombs, 6 RBIs. And James, he's doing everything he can to try and force his way onto the roster. I'm not sure one will be available, but it definitely makes you think about how that could work.
Yeah, everything I read on that is the only way he makes the team is if somebody else is injured to start the season, no matter how hot he is. So, if you want to order your Roman Quinn jersey, go right ahead. But just
see, I'm not
probably going to be in Columbus.
And I get it, and I agree with you. But there's also a part of me that's like,
play the hot guys.
Are they really going to keep like these redundant guys, like both of Gabriel Arias or Tyler Freeman? Or are they both competing for one? We know Will Brennan's got that 4th outfielder spot locked up, and I think he could get a good amount of starts in center field. I don't think Miles Straw is going to be on as long of a leash as he was last year. It's definitely far from likely, but I mean, if he keeps hitting 3 home runs every 2 days, it's going to be tough to ignore that little dude, but he plays good defense too. So it's an interesting name, and he came from Tampa Bay last year. So I'm surprised they didn't already squeeze all the potential out of this guy, but they left a little something in the tank for us. So shout out to Tampa Bay. Will Brennan, he's like I mentioned, the 4th outfielder for now. He's raking already this spring, hitting over 400. He was talking early in camp, James. He was kicking himself all off season because Garrett Cole exposed a hole in his swing that he didn't even know he had. And all those Yankee pitchers were attacking that hole in his swing. And he did. He struggled massively.
Here's the best part. Do you know what you just said? Will Brennan said that Garrett Cole of the Yankees in the playoffs exposed something in his swing. Mm-hmm. Isn't that way better than somebody finding that in AAA, not being on the playoff roster, right, not getting those at bats against all-star pitchers?
It took all the way till one of the best pitchers in the game to expose that swing. I'd say he's doing pretty well for himself.
Absolutely.
Again, we will get more into roster spots as the spring continues to progress and they start trimming this roster down. I mentioned a little bit earlier in the episode, look out for our big season preview predictions episode coming sometime later this month. We also have a guest coming up we're going to have for you guys. We're still working out the details on. So make sure you're following the podcast page over at Guardians OTCLE for all the latest updates on any future guests, all upcoming episodes. Make sure you turn notifications on. Make sure you're following so you're up to date on all the Guardians news as we head into the season. And again, we got some guests coming up before the season starts, so we're excited about that as well. And James, do you got anything else before?
I want to thank our sponsors again: Marlowe's Shoes out of Lyndhurst, Brunswick Automall, SeatGeek, and also Carrie's Weight and Wellness Program.
Yes, thank you once again. And as we head out of here, make sure you head over to BelieveLandMediaLLC.com for all your professional and high school sports content. We got you covered over there. High school basketball playoffs getting underway here in Ohio. Cavs approaching their playoff run. Browns the combine's getting underway. Browns free agency. Obviously, the Guardian season starting. So make sure you're checking out BelieveLandMediaLLC.com for all our podcasts and written content. That's all we have for you guys here tonight. I think that's everything I had. Enjoy the Guardians games the rest of this week. Go Cavs, big game down in Boston tonight. Excited to watch that here in a little bit. And everybody, make sure you stay safe, stay healthy, and go Guardians.
Go Guardians. Thank you, everyone.